The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, awesome gamer-themed weddings, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review the Taverns of Tiefenthal from Wolfgang Warsch and North Star Games. Then they look back at their review of the Quacks of Quedlinburg, also from Wolfgang Warsch, in their Dukes Double Take. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And this is episode 218, Wolfgang Pack. Wolfgang Pack. That name thanks to D. Shannon over on our Board Game Geek Guild number 2008, where we get help naming all of our episodes from our awesome guild members. It's really crazy, Alex. This was not planned at all.
No.
Was not,
to be
absolutely
clear,
not planned.
Anyone who's listened to the show long enough should know we don't plan well enough to have possibly pulled that off. It just kind of happens sometimes.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So we are, of course, reviewing Taverns of Tiefenthal, which is a Wolfgang Warsch game, and we're doing a double take for Quacks of Quedlinburg, which is also a Wolfgang Warsch game, and just not planned whatsoever. So yeah, kind of like the Wolf Pack, but instead it's the Wolfgang Pack. So I like it. Good job, D. Shannon.
Nice job. And there's a whole bunch of other names that we'll get to at the end of the episode, including another one from D. Shannon that I have been requested by several people to sing. And so I will make a fool out of myself and sing.
There was one person that requested that you not sing it, but
I don't listen to that kind of negativity in my life, Sean.
It wasn't me.
No, it wasn't. It was not you. I should note, Sean, on the guild, speaking of the guild, there was a question that came up. Someone was recommending the Dukes of Dice podcast to a friend of theirs, and they were curious what a good first episode to start off on would be.
Episode 1, baby.
No, I don't agree with that.
Dude, I'm joking.
Don't agree with that.
Don't listen to that hot mess.
But here's the thing. I will say, other than the audio quality, it sounds very similar to what we do now in a lot of ways. It's not as different from now as you would think.
Yeah.
Some formatting things and other, but in terms of the banter and the two of us, I don't think it's changed that much. Maybe other folks would disagree. In any case, do you know what one of the top recommendations on that thread was, Sean?
No, what?
The Gaia Project episode.
Oh yeah. That's how you get a little slice of what makes the Alex Sean relationship. Like what goes into that?
I was going to say, what makes it work? Question mark.
Yeah, if there were an avatar of the Alex Sean relationship, it would be that episode.
It's just me kind of shrugging and you just look like quiet, but with rage across your face.
Oh boy.
Anyway, how have you been doing? Do we have a Dukes of Diet update? Anything else cooking in your life?
Do we have a Dukes of Diet update? Yeah, no, I'm doing good. So got a problem.
Uh-oh.
I'm up a pound.
Oh no.
From last episode, which is okay, because I was actually up 6 pounds 5 days ago.
Pounds of muscle?
No. Well, maybe, but probably not. No, so it was Raquel's birthday.
Yeah.
And typically, like, man, when it was my birthday, we had Sean Con, like, I was good. Everything was fine. But like Raquel's birthday, it was really bad. It was 3 days of eating that I was trying to be smart and trying to make the right calls, but it was tough. So real quick. So Friday, which was her actual birthday, this last Friday, Mariah made me and Raquel, more Raquel, breakfast burritos. Well, I don't eat breakfast. I do intermittent fasting. I don't eat till noon. I didn't want to be a big jerk because, I'm a nice guy, Alex. And so I'm like, oh, I'll eat the burrito. And then, but I'd already planned to make, Raquel had requested fried chicken. So we did that, and I still eat something at lunch, and I did something small, but then we did fried chicken, and boy, was it good. And then the next day, we were going to go out to a nice steakhouse, which we did do. But my grandfather wanted to take Raquel and all of us out for her birthday at her favorite New Mexican restaurant in Old Town, actually, in downtown. And man, it's so good. And I was trying to make smart decisions, but it was just tough. And then we went to this nice steakhouse. And we went with Rory and his fiancée Marie, and they kept goading me on. I'm like, well, just get like the petite filet. And Rory's like, oh, you gotta get this, you gotta get that. I'm like, anyway, I made smart decisions, but it was still a lot of food. And then the next morning, we got breakfast in the room. We had a hotel room that night. Got breakfast in the room, and we got eggs Benedict because that's her favorite birthday breakfast, which I usually make at home, but we're at the hotel. So I ate that. And then my mom wound up keeping Chewy until like 7:00 Sunday night. So we went to Empire to play some games, and then I had food there. Like, it was just crazy. Like, by the end of these 3 days, even though I didn't feel like I went that crazy, I had gained 6 pounds.
Just takes a little slip up, apparently.
And I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't doing anything like super insane, right? Like, I was still trying to kind of control everything. I don't know. It was nuts. And so I've been working hard since then. I lost 5 of it. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Although I will say right now, the gym is insane. Like, the gym is so busy. It is incredible. It's the
New Year's resolution, man.
New Year's resolution. Yeah. It's incredible. It's really,
it'll calm down. It won't last.
Yeah, I know. No, I know. So anyway, that's how the Dukes of Diet is going. Alex, how you doing, buddy?
I got 2 topics to discuss.
Oh boy.
Non-game related topics, though one of them is more game related than others. Do you want the happy one or the annoyed, angry one first?
Always annoyed, angry.
You want that one first?
Oh, of course.
Okay. All right. So I am positive that among our thousands of listeners, and that was meant more literally, but among that group, there is at least someone who works in HR. At least one person, right, Sean? There has to be. All right. I got something that's been grinding my gears.
Okay.
Back in late November, early December, I applied for a job at Enterprise, which is based here in St. Louis. It would have been a social media role dealing with running the National and Alamos brands on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere you would look for a brand on social media. Pinterest too. I'd have to learn a little bit more about Pinterest. And it was an extended interview process. It started off with a phone interview with the HR person. It started off with after that it went to a phone interview with the person who would be my boss. Then it went to an in-person interview with the person who would be my boss and the person who was doing the role previously. Then they brought me back for a second interview where I met the 3 other people on the team, the person who's my boss's boss and my boss's 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 boss, who's the VP of marketing at Enterprise. All of that stuff. Long process. Late November, early December. All the way until this week is when the process ended. Now, look, there's a bunch of people in the running. Not everyone's going to win. You're going to have to turn people down. That doesn't annoy me, right? It's going to happen. This is, I think, the 3rd job, by the way, I finished somewhere in the runner-up top 3 kind of role for, which is frustrating, but is not what I was specifically frustrated about, which is there is this concept that I think I've talked about on the podcast before about the monkey sphere, about there's only so many people you can hold in your brain as humans, as thinking about kind of their complex and detailed lives and having event or whatever else. But beyond that, it's just, okay, that's a red car. And that's, an old man with a purse or something. I don't know.
What?
My examples aren't great. The point is, I was able to, in this moment, pinpoint the exact spot where I flipped from being a unique individual person to not a person in this process.
Okay.
Because after all of this, again, extensive, 2 phone interviews, 2 in-person interviews, one of which included an hour-long test that I had to take, it just turned into, it was just a very short email. We've decided to pursue other candidates for this position. Best of luck. Form letter.
Sure.
Done. I got to tell you, if you're in HR, that is a terrible feeling for several reasons. One, I don't have any feedback on what it was. Was it something I did? Was it just they had a better option? Did I do something that offended people? I don't know what the deal is, and I can't use that information to do better in the next thing. Is that your problem? I guess it isn't. But to have it be so kind of blatantly thrown in my face that it's not their problem, I was annoyed, angry, frustrated, whatever else about that whole thing. So if you work in HR, I hope you treat people better than that. That's all. That's all I'm going to throw out there. Anyway.
You jerks.
Yeah, you jerks. Take that. Job search update. I'm still in the running for some other things elsewhere. I'm not despondent. I'm just frustrated. Anyway,
Sure.
that's the annoyed Alex part jumping in. The happy Alex part is part of the reason this episode is a week late is, one, you were celebrating Raquel's birthday. Two, I was out of town at a wedding, and specifically a wedding that would not have existed, not that the wedding would have existed. I wouldn't have been there.
Alex, I think your ability to envision people as unique individuals is smaller than most. Because that was a very Alex focused Freudian slip.
That wasn't what I was intending to say. Was I would not have been at this wedding were it not for the Dukes of Dice. Because 5 years ago at my very first convention, you and I met Anthony Harlan.
Yeah.
And Anthony, awesome guy. I think if you listen to some of those Dice Tower Con episodes, I don't know if he ever made an appearance on the episode on mic, but certainly we would have talked about plays we had with him and meeting him and some of that experience. And it became an annual tradition. Every year that we were down there for Dice Tower Con, we'd meet up and we'd play games. Sometimes it was for a couple days. Sometimes he'd be busier. And then the fourth year I was at Dice Tower Con, I met Alexis, his girlfriend. And then the year after that, I met Alexis, his fiance, and got an invite to their wedding.
His girlfriend and his fiance had the same name? That's kind of...
It's pretty weird, right?
That's awkward.
In any case, Abby and I went down to Florida, down to St. Augustine. It was a beautiful ceremony. I was moved to tears. They're very, 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 very good for each other. They gave out custom love letter themed wedding favors, which had their name embroidered on the back. It was Alexis's mom that had done that, and cool. Then custom printed cards of the bride.
Oh,
so that is my new copy of Love Letter. I will show it up for Sean so he can kind of see. This doesn't help anyone else out there, but
I saw your pictures on Facebook.
Yeah. And then also the groom, Anthony, had a Hearthstone-themed cake, which was pretty cool. So great to see gamers in love. And that was fun to be at, and enjoyed some great food and some sun because it is miserably cold in St. Louis right now. Sean, those are my life updates, mostly non-board game related.
Okay. Thanks for checking in, Alex. Hey,
you're welcome.
Let me ask you real quick. Would you rather play a game of Nothing Personal with Sean and Raquel, or with Anthony and Alexis?
Anthony and Alexis.
Okay. Oh, man.
That's what I'm telling you. That is one of my least favorite gaming experiences of all time. I still remember how physically angry I was playing that game.
Good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
Don't like Nothing Personal. Have not played it since. Will not play it again ever. I'm pretty sure. I say that hesitantly because maybe there'll be some situation that'll force me to play that game, but I hope not. Anyway, those are all the mostly non-board game things in my check-in. There's no real diet check-in. I'm not really doing that at the moment. I'm maintaining the same weight. So there you go. Hey, let's talk about games, because this is a board game-related podcast in theory.
This is the deepest we've ever been in without actually talking about board games.
I actually don't think that's true. My guess is there have probably been episodes that we have gone deeper, but this is pretty bad.
There may have been like a 19-minute one. I'm guessing like our recording's at the 15-minute mark, so we're probably close to 12. All right, let's just talk about games. You go first, Alex.
Well, I have to go first.
Yes.
All right. Well, Sean, I got a chance to play a game that is starting to get some buzz as it's fulfilling from Kickstarter, a game called Isle of Cats. Have you heard of this game?
Yeah, it's where you're going shopping for cats down the store aisles, right?
It's not how that word is spelled. ISLE. It is designed by Frank West, published by the City of Games. And it is a game where you are rescuing cats and putting them on your boat and trying to get points. It's a polyomino game, so it's very Tetris-y in nature. There's basically two different groups of cats on either side of an island. Some of them cost 3 fish and some of them cost 5 fish. Each round, before you rescue them, though, you have a draft of cards. So you'll draft either cards that are baskets that'll help you rescue the cats, or you'll gather cards that are lessons that will help you teach things to cats that will get you victory points. Some of them are private lessons, which you only will score. Some of them are public lessons, which everyone will score, but you'll probably try and play in a way that benefits just you. There are other things, little treasures you can find in Oshak's cats, I believe, or something close to that, which are wild cats. The cats are in different colors. You can score points if you group a bunch of the same color next to each other. You can get other bonuses if you have them cover certain sections. At the end of the game, you're looking to have board coverage. You'll get points from lessons. And for as adorable of a theme as this was, Sean, there's a little bit of meat on this bone. There's a little bit of meat on this bone if you play with lesson cards. A fun spatial puzzle, I should say. I'm not doing great with words. Words and I are not friends on this particular recording. Beautiful components, adorable art, and it all clicked together really well. There's a reason this game is at an 8.3 on BGG off of 717 ratings. My guess is if and when this is more widely available, I don't think this has hit distribution just yet. I don't know if it will. It could really take off. It is actually a pretty fantastic little game. One of the better ones I've played so far this year. So the combination of the draft, the puzzle you have on your board, the different ways you can accumulate points, and it all just comes together in a beautiful way. So Isle of Cats, I give a strong, strong recommendation to.
Interesting. I'm looking at the Kickstarter page. This is not what I was envisioning when you were talking about it.
Okay, what were you envisioning?
Well, there's been a lot of I don't know, cat games. There's like Cat Lady and they're all just like little card games and little, and they're fine, I'm sure. You're right. This does have a little more meat on the bones, and the art is gorgeous.
It's gorgeous art, and it's the draft that really helps set the game apart. That you have to make some pretty interesting decisions. Do I grab more baskets to try and rescue more cats? And if I do I have the fish to pay for those cats? Do I hold on to these lessons? And sorry, I forgot to mention that as you draft these cards, you have to pay for them. They have certain costs to them. So I have to balance out how much fish money do I save back for scooping up cats with my baskets, and how much money do I spend on cards. So I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things clicking together that make for a pretty satisfying puzzle. Had a great time with this. I will say my arch nemesis and rival Joe, now with Stonemaier Games, did almost try and cheat me out of a win. When he added up scores, he added up the scores for a column, but then wrote the score in a different column accidentally. So it looked like I lost, but I didn't lose. And that's what's important. Isle of Cats, I recommend it. That's it. That's all I have.
Okay.
Back to you.
All right. Well, we had a night of train games last night at Empire Board Game Library. So real quick, Matt, one half of Wham, the now defunct Wham. I think we can say they're defunct.
How long has it been? It's been a good chunk of time.
Year and a half, 2 years, maybe 2 years.
I think at least 2 years.
Anyway, Matt and I wanted to see if we could play a 2-player 18xx game on a Wednesday night without chips, using basically pencil and paper ledger. So keeping track of
Question.
Yes.
I have an important question on this.
Yes.
Why?
Because it was awesome and fun. So it's funny that you asked that, because I took a picture and I haven't posted it on Twitter yet. But I'm like, this picture is literally Alex's fevered nightmare, because it was just basically a bunch of spreadsheets, a bunch of like paper hand ledger spreadsheets, where we would keep track of, this stock paid out $21. Okay, my personal bank goes up $21, and then this company bought a train. So it was great, and we played 1862 in like what do we figure? I think 2.5 hours. So it was kind of a proof of concept. We wanted to see if he and I were comfortable with doing it by paper, which we were, and it's much quicker. All right, anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. There was another train game that we played that night, and that is from Level 99, and it's Empyreal Spells and Steam. And if you're going to look this up on BGG or elsewhere, you need to spell Empyreal correctly, and that's EMPYREAL. Imperial.
The
Imperial
correct
spelled.
spelling.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So this is interesting. This reminds me a little bit of Age of Steam, but not really. A little bit. So of course this has the level 99 aesthetic, that kind of, anime manga, or I guess manga aesthetic. This is designed by Trey Chambers, who designed Argent the Consortium. So I enjoy Argent quite a bit. Own it. It's up in my collection. Haven't gotten rid of it, Alex, in the Purge. Survived the Purge. And
That game is phenomenal, by the way, having played it relatively recently.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, in Dice Tower Con last year or the year before.
So sort of recently.
Recently enough to remember that it's awesome.
All right, fair enough. In this game, it's not really pick up and deliver. You're creating a network of trains around this map that has a bunch of different terrain types. So there's like mountains and lakes and grasslands. I forget the exact names of the different types. And then there's also cities. And so each terrain type produces one resource, or it starts the game with one resource. And generally speaking, you're not going to add more to the map, although there are some abilities that may let you do that from time to time. And what you're trying to do is basically siphon off the resources that your network is touching and get the right colors to the right cities. Every resource that you're able to siphon off is worth a point. And then if you're able to deliver a certain number at a time, you're going to get these contract cards that are worth certain bonus points. So you definitely want to be doing that. Okay, nothing crazy there. Sounds pretty normal. But what's really interesting is how you're doing this. It's almost a rondelle. It's a linear rondelle, if that makes sense, Alex. You basically are taking this little pawn of yours and you're moving it across your player board. And there are, I don't know, maybe 6 different action spots. And so you could go to the right, and generally you can go 1 step over for free. But if you want to go 2 steps, it's going to cost you some mana. You have a certain amount of mana you start the game with, and you can refresh it from time to time. But if I want to go forward extra steps, I'm paying more mana. And the farther ahead I jump, the more mana I have to pay. And then when you get to the end, you are able to do a delivery. It's called end of line, I think. And you're able to do a delivery to the cities, and then you're able to choose between 3 bonuses for getting to the end of the rail, or end of the line rather. And then you start back at the beginning. So it could be a circle, in theory. So it's kind of a rondelle, but laid out instead of a circle end to end. It's fine. Don't worry about that. So what's interesting is you start the game with 1 action per spot. And as you take other actions during the game and take certain bonuses, you're going to get new action placards. They're actually spell cars. They're little train cars that you add to your giant train, I guess. And so now when I come to a spot, I might have 2 or 3 actions in that column. And if I want to take all of those actions, I'm going to pay 1 additional if I want to take 1 additional action, or I'm going to pay, I think, 3 additional if I want to take all 3 actions. So there's some interesting choices there. And generally the actions are lay a rail extending from your network on a certain type of terrain, or maybe it's refresh your mana, or maybe it's increase your maximum mana rate, or get new spell cards. Then there's also ways to get these 3 different upgrade cards. And I forget exactly what they're called, but there's one that you can use once in a while until you refresh it. And there's an action that refreshes that card and also your company card, which has special abilities. There's another card that you can use once per game once you acquire it, and it's usually a very strong special action. And then there's another card you can acquire that just gives you a cool ongoing ability. Like mine was, I had a discount if I wanted to jump ahead in the action spots on my board. Yeah, this was good. This was really good. When I heard about this game, I'm like, oh, cool, a level 99 train game. That sounds pretty interesting. And then this came out to the table last week, and I looked at it, and it didn't wow me when I looked at it. And the reason it didn't wow me, I think, is because it was a little busy. And this was the super deluxe version. So there's kind of the regular version and the super deluxe version. And so the super deluxe version was out, and it had all of these different resource bits kind of like the Stonemaier bits, but not Stonemaier. And for some reason, it just made the board look really busy. And then last night when we played it, we actually had 2 copies. We had the deluxe version, then we had a normal version that just had regular, plain old cardboard tokens for the resources that completely cuts down on the clutter. We're both a pair tonight, Alex.
Clut down on the cutter.
Clut down on the cutter. Yeah, I like that much more. That was, in my mind, a much better way to play the game. And don't get me wrong, like the deluxe version, all of the pieces are fantastic looking. And if you're into blinging out your games and having the best version of a game, well, that's probably it. But it was a little less busy to play just the base game. So I'm excited to get some more plays of this in. It was really good. I was pretty happy with it. So that is Empyreal, Spells, and Steam.
Sean, I have something completely unrelated that occurred to me. Do you think it helped or hurt that during the interview process with Enterprise, my last question was the ice cream question?
Oh, boy.
They were like, do you have any questions for us? And my last question was the ice cream question.
Okay.
The question for new listeners,
yeah,
if you could be any flavor of ice cream, what flavor would you be and why? Do you think that helped or hurt?
That hurt.
Okay.
As someone who has conducted interviews, that hurt.
Yeah, fair. All right. Anyway.
Why'd you bring that up just now?
No, I just was thinking about that, and I don't have any actual comments on the train game. It sounds like it's fun. I like level 99 games. It sounds like it'd be fun. It was just occurring to me. I wonder if that helped or hurt. I get an expert opinion, and Sean's leaning towards hurt.
I really want to play Pixel Tactics. I played Pixel Tactics with Raquel a couple months ago, and she did not like it, and that was disappointing to me because I really like Pixel Tactics.
I wouldn't have pegged that as a Raquel game. I would peg that definitely as a you game, but not as a Raquel game.
Yeah, that's probably my mistake.
In any event, Sean, back to games and less on my continued failure to achieve employment.
Sure.
Parks. This is a game that had gotten a ton of buzz last year, and I had yet to get to the table. It's from Keymaster Games. And this is a game where you are sending your hikers out to try and visit as many national parks and snap as many photos as you can, because that's how you get points. You get points from photos, you get points from a year goal that's kind of secret to you, and you get points from visiting different national parks. You have 2 hikers. You can send them further forward on the trail, as far or as short as you'd like, with the exception being that, save for using your special campfire ability, you can't visit spaces that are occupied by other campers. You're trying to gather resources. Those resources are forests, mountains, water, and sunshine, and use those resources to ultimately visit parks, buy gear that'll help you visit more parks, or take photos. In any case, there's several things going on in this game. The mechanic that it's closest to, if folks have played it, is Tokaido. Again, with that whole, you can move as far forward as you'd like, but there's reasons you might not want to move as far forward. It might hurt your game. And I will tell you, Sean, regardless of what you think about the game, this is one of the most gorgeously produced games I have played in a good amount of time. Beautiful trays that held the bits, 2 of them, one that you could put on one side of the table, one that went on the other. Custom-shaped animals, which are effectively wild resources. Stunning art on the cards themselves, along with fun little parks facts. Graphic design, crisp, clean, and clear. Hikers, really nice wooden bits. It just, I sent Abby a picture of this from game night, and her first response in all caps was pretty. And man, is this a stunning game. I actually think it's a pretty good game too. It did more for me tactically than I thought it was going to. It is certainly on the lighter end of the spectrum. I liked it better than Tokaido, a game that is, as discussed, it's fairly similar to. There are at least enough interesting strategies you can develop. I can, for instance, I was focusing heavily on water parks to try and meet my goal card. Others at the table were focusing more on camera actions and trying to get cheap photos and have the camera in front of them and get little extra points from that. Some people focused more on gear and having better discounts. I focused less on that route, and all ended up in a relatively similar place. The final score was 34-34 28. Game only has one tiebreaker, and that tiebreaker was tied, so it ended up in a tie at the end of it. I liked how it reshuffles the trail. How you lay out the kind of board that your hikers are going along is you'll take all of the basic ones plus one, shuffle them together, lay them out. For round 2, once everyone's reached the end of the trail, you'll add another advanced tile to that, shuffle, and lay it out. So it added a nice modular board and interesting puzzle each time you'd go. I would question long-term replayability of something like this. There aren't interesting abilities, say, on the parks or enough different ongoing effects to where I think a gamer's gamer is going to really sink their teeth into this and get 10, 15, 20 plays and be happy. But for a handful of plays and for serving as a nice gateway game, entry game, it's stunningly produced, and the mechanics are good enough that there's going to be enough for a typical gamer to really dig. Sean, you've talked about this one before. You're less high on this one.
No, it's not that it's fine. It's a fine game. It's good. And I think it's a nice gateway level game. It was interesting having, the move as far ahead as you want, but you have two pieces that you can do that with. And I thought that was interesting. And I think I was able to benefit from a really strong picture taking strategy. And I think I ran away with that game. But it's good. I'll play it again.
Now, I will say this is unrelated to the game, but I got to try. So I would score the game a 4. I would score a drink that I had at game night at a 1. Sean, have you ever had the displeasure of trying Malort?
No, I don't know what that is.
You heard of Malort?
I have no idea.
I don't know what it is. I think it's from Chicago. It is pitched as a bitter liquor, meant to be taken as a shot. Maybe some people might use it as a mixer. Sean, have you ever tasted the really, really bitter part of a grapefruit? I'm not talking about the acid, the sweet, any of that. The bitter part of certain parts of a grapefruit. If you eat one, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think so. Probably not.
You don't know what I'm talking about. Okay.
I'm sorry to disappoint, Alex.
All right. Well, it's bitter. It's the bitterest. It's so bitter. I have not tasted anything that I can think of that is more bitter than this drink. And I literally took a sip and I just said, "This is terrible." And I was not the only one who felt the same way. So, would not recommend Malort in any form or fashion.
But you would recommend Parks.
I would recommend Parks, though. Yes. So those are the games I played this week. Sean, what else have you been playing?
You know what? I feel like we were talking about which is the episode that a new listener should listen to first. And this is probably the one that they shouldn't listen to first, because this is the episode of asides and tangents.
That seems like a fine thing. What's wrong with asides?
I feel like everything we've talked about, like, well, that reminds me.
As we get older, Sean, we'll start telling more and more the Old Man Dukes podcast. Yep.
Well, we got to give Rolling Dice and Taking Name a run for their money, so.
Hey, I'm all of 30 now. I got to start planning for retirement.
All right. So the last thing I'm going to do, Alex, is I'm going to do a little favorite around here, and that's Sean Ramirez's Expansion Roundup.
Wah, 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 wah.
So I got to play 2 expansions for 2 of some of my favorite games of all time, 2 6s. And so, of course, when there's an expansion for a 6, I'm eager to try it. However, both of these expansions I have owned now for a long time, and I have yet to play either of them. And in fact, it was Eugene, our buddy Eugene, who finally got me to play both of these on the same night. So real quick, the first one is Mottainai, which is a top 10 game for me. It's like my number 3 game, number 4 game. And this is a fantastic multi-use card game by Carl Chuduk. I love it so much. And we've talked about it quite a bit. Wutai Mountain is the name of the expansion, and it adds a whole new deck of cards. You don't shuffle them in. They're kept separate. These are called the Ohm works, or the Ohm cards. And you draw them a little less frequently than you would draw the main cards from the main deck, but they have a very interesting ability in that they kind of become an additional player board. And when I say player board, everyone has a player board, And you're able to tuck things to the left, right, top, or bottom on your player board. And depending on where it's tucked will determine what it's doing for you. So if you tuck on the left, that's a helper, which will give you bonus actions. If you're tucking up top, that's basically the action you're taking that round. If you're tucking below, that's your craft bench, which is going to let you build certain cards. And then if you tuck on the right, that's your sales, which is going to give you potentially some endgame bonus points in some different ways. So the Ohm works, OHM, which makes sense because you're monks in a monastery. The Ohm works become additional player boards in a sense, and you're able to tuck cards, generally though only in one of the left, right, or bottom positions. And for each work you have tucked there, it's going to give you some crazy ability, just insane abilities that almost, Eugene was saying, almost make the game rise to the level of Glory to Rome. In terms of Glory to Rome has just these crazy abilities that are all game breaking, but they're all equally game breaking, so it all balances out. And Mottainai doesn't quite reach that level on its own. I prefer Mottainai to Glory to Rome, although it's close. It's very, very close. Here's what I'll say. I have had such a difficult time teaching Mottainai to new players. I remember one of the last times I taught it to a new player was Ellie, and Ellie can play heavy games with the best of them. And I remember it was late at night and I got like halfway through the rules and he's like, you know what? I think I'm good. I think I'm just gonna pass on this. And so it's difficult to teach new players. And a lot of times, they understand what you're supposed to do. They don't understand why. They don't understand like how to plan like 5 turns in advance. And I haven't experienced that with Mottainai in a long time since I first learned the game. And even then I feel like I caught on pretty quickly. But holy cow, adding in the Wutai Mountain expansion, it created that experience for me. It was like relearning the game from scratch. It seemed like it added quite a bit. I would never teach this to a new player to Mottainai without having first had them learn the base game and be fairly experienced with the base game. It was bonkers.
I feel like not knowing anything about the expansion, that was likely going to be the answer in 99% of whatever that expansion would look like anyway, just because of how hard that game is to teach anyway. Like,
Right.
literally, we've talked about this on the show. You have to teach someone how to play without the special powers and then teach them how to play without the unique powers on the works.
Right.
That to me is the only way you can properly, successfully teach that game.
Yeah. No, I think so. So yeah, it's good. I'm eager. I am eager to play it some more. Raquel really likes Mottainai. I don't know that she's going to like Wutai Mountain, which means there's probably the only person I could probably play with on the regular is going to be Eugene, which is fine. And I prefer Mottainai 2 players anyway. So I'm a little disappointed that I don't think I'll be able to play it with Raquel because I just don't think she's going to really enjoy it, but that's fine. The second game is Russian Railroads, and I got to play the American Railroads expansion, and holy cow, this was good. So I've previously played German Railroads, that expansion. This is all a worker placement engine building game. It's a pretty straightforward worker placement game, nothing too fancy with the worker placement mechanism, but it's an engine building game, both literally and figuratively. Because as you're building your engine strength and your tracks on these 3 separate routes, you are scoring more points. And as you get farther and meet certain prerequisites, you're training into certain bonuses. I love this game. It used to be a top 10 game. It's probably a top 20, top 25 game. It's still a very solid 6. I love this game a lot. Base Russian Railroads probably comes out 3-4 times a year. It comes out a lot, quite a bit. And this one really throws things for a loop. So you have whole new player boards with a very unique set of tracks. There's actually a 4th track that's an industry track, although American Railroads adds 2 industry tracks instead of just the normal 1. And this, Eugene warned me, he's like, this is the most combo-y of German, Russian, all of them. This is the most combo-y, and he was right. There is some was just crazy combos that you can pull off with this game. It's kind of it's kind of hard to describe American Railroads because really the differences are these little nuances from the different versions. And without going into too much about it, if you like Russian Railroads, I think you got to play American Railroads. I think I prefer it to German. I liked German because a lot of times with base Russian Railroads, it kind of felt scripted for me. Like I'd do the kind of the same things. And German, I liked that it kind of threw that for a loop. American definitely does that, and I think I prefer it. So, when's the last time you played Russian Railroads, Alex? With me?
It's been a very long time.
Okay.
Been a very long time. Maybe 3, 4, even longer years.
Okay. Well,
I liked it well enough. It would be one that I'd be hesitant to play with you just because I would get unbelievably smashed, just destroyed. You would destroy me.
Sounds fun.
And I'd be very sad about it.
Well, it'd be fine.
All right.
So anyway,
Cool.
That's the American Railroads expansion to Russian Railroads.
Sean, talking about Russian Railroads reminds me of this time at All-Star Fair here in St. Louis this weekend where I participated in the... Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm not actually going to get into this. Anyway, that's what we played. Let's head on over to the news desk.
So, Alex, looking at the news, I have a I have a quick aside for you. What is the first thing when I mention the city of Nuremberg? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
The famous trials that occurred there.
Oh, of the Nazi war criminals?
Yes.
Well, erase that from your memory, Alex, because now I want you to associate Nuremberg with the world's largest toy fair.
Oh, okay, good.
So I think it's called Spielwarenmessen, I think.
Okay.
So that's happening right now. And there's some interesting news coming out of there from Alea-Ravensburger. So there was a picture of this posted online today of a new Tiefenthal title. It is a dark green box with a yellow circle, kind of looks like a rondelle with a lion's head knocker, like a door knocker. And at the top it says, "The Castles of Tuscany."
What could this mean, Sean? Is this an expansion?
Well, so it's supposed to be some kind of successor or have some sort of resemblance to Castles of Burgundy. I don't know. But there's very little information. It's anticipated this will be out Q3 of 2020. And part of this is Alea is kind of trying to rebrand itself. And rightly so, because a lot of the Alea-Ravensburger boxes of old looked not the best, is probably the fairest way to say this. So this does not look like your typical Alea-Ravensburger box. It looks really nice. I'll point out also that for Raquel's birthday, Rory and Marie got her the Castles of Burgundy Deluxe game. So hopefully she'll let me play it with her at some point.
I think that's likely.
Yeah. So happy birthday, Raquel. Good times there. Yeah, so no idea what this is, but I of course I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I certainly will give it a shot too. And if it's reminiscent of Castles of Burgundy, but just with other twists or modern flair to it, it's sort of the Doppelt so clever to the Ganz schon clever.
Sure.
It's of that. I'm likely to love it because I still play Castles of Burgundy all the time on Yukata. In fact, it's actually my turn in one of those games right now.
Oh,
so I'll probably take a turn as we're recording this podcast.
So,
anyway.
Okay. So also coming out of news from Spielwarenmessen. Ooh. So they're also re-releasing Puerto Rico, and it's a beautiful looking box. It's got kind of like the old timey nautical map look on the cover with a nice little gold coin on the front. And there was the 10th anniversary edition that came out, but this is sort of the new evergreen version of the title. Did I say 10th anniversary? Oh wait, yeah, 10th anniversary. So yeah, and this does coincide with Alea's 20th anniversary, not the game, but Alea, the publisher itself. So they're just doing their little rebranding. However, and that's going to be available in Germany, France, and the UK in Q4 of 2020. Nothing about an American release yet. So I've actually wanted to pick up a copy of Puerto Rico. And so this will probably be the excuse I need for that. I really enjoy Puerto Rico, and I've never owned it. Have you played?
I think so. A long time ago.
Yeah, it's
a long time ago. I can't remember if I played San Juan or Puerto Rico. I played one of those.
Okay. And then the last thing is a little interesting, and it has more of the traditional Alea-Ravensburger look. Hey, Alex, you ever played Strike? I know you have.
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course. And by the way, for Rolling Dice and Taking Names listeners, I am 100% team Gladiators in a Bowl.
Yeah, wait, no, it's not Gladiators in a Bowl. It's Gladiators in an arena.
Oh, in an arena. I mixed the two.
You just totally
Well, that's some propaganda for the Dice in a Bowl crowd.
Yeah,
I am team Gladiators in an arena.
No, you're straddling the fence there. You're having your
not
cake
intentionally
and eating
doing
it too.
so. Anyway, there's for folks who don't know, there's a tournament of this very game at Gen Con, usually at the Old Spaghetti Factory, which I maintain is a dumb name for a restaurant. There is a tournament of this hosted by the wonderful folks at Rolling Dice and Taking Names, Marty and Tony. They tend to have a ton of great prizes and other game designers. It's a fantastic event.
Kind of fun.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I have heard of that game, Sean.
So, Alex, how would you feel about a Harry Potter version of Strike?
I wouldn't care one bit, one way or the other about it.
Well, you figure they've got, because they do a bunch of puzzles too. Ravensburger does a bunch of puzzles, and they've got rights to Harry Potter for puzzle purposes. And they're like, oh, we could totally parlay this into a Harry Potter version of Strike.
Sure, why not?
So yeah, instead of numbers on the dice, it's got little magical symbols and wands, and it's whatever. It's fine. Everything's fine. I bet you if it's out by Gen Con, at least one of the tables will have this as a Strike tournament for RDTN.
I would think so. Now, the one advantage that this has over Impact, which is effectively Strike with some other abilities if you want to play with them, is box size. Impact was a smaller arena for the gladiators to battle in. This one is going to be done in the Strike-sized box, so a larger thing that's more friendly for actually going and engaging in fun dice combat, and takes out the element of, oops, I threw it into the arena and it bounced out and I lost it, and I'm an idiot for doing so. Takes that out of the equation.
Yeah. So yeah, just some interesting news there from Alea. I'll definitely be keeping my eyes peeled for Castles of Tuscany. Definitely interested in hearing more about that.
Awesome. Well, hey, Sean, there are a ton of heavy-hitting Kickstarter projects going on right now. Return to Dark Tower, Oath from Leader Games. But we do have a sponsor on this show, and our sponsor is currently running, and almost done running as of the time of this recording, a Kickstarter campaign for a game called Foundations of Rome. You may have heard an ad for it here on the Dukes of Dice. This is a game designed by Emerson Matsuuchi, also known for the Century series, and also known for, what's the hidden movement game that's really good that you don't like?
Spectre Ops.
And also the Metal Gear Solid game that is coming down the pipe. Emerson Matsuuchi, fantastic designer. It is a Dice Tower Essentials game. And from best I can tell from watching a couple videos and looking at the mechanics of this is you are building Rome. There are plots that you can buy. You'll buy certain plots at different prices. You'll then, either by trading or whatever else, eventually start building buildings on those plots. You can build a building initially, and then if you acquire more land nearby it, you can expand that building. And has a crazy table presence. You have these miniatures that represent the buildings. It looks really grand on the table. Not a necessarily cheap game by any means. It's $59 for the base game, not bad. But if you want the full set with the expansion, 5th player deal, all metal coins, all the bells and whistles, $159. Now, the big thing that sets this apart from some other Kickstarter projects, and this has certainly been done by others, but this is being done for this one too, this is a completely Kickstarter exclusive. They are not planning on releasing this through distribution. So if the game looks appealing, if this is something you want to get, it will be available either just through this Kickstarter or through a retail partner who pledged for it through the Kickstarter, which they have that option on the campaign as well. It has well exceeded its funding goal. It was a $50,000 funding goal. It is at $635,000 as of the time of this recording. But you only have until February 6th to pledge your support if Foundations of Rome sounds like something you would be super interested in. So I have not played it personally. It looks really cool. It looks like something I would enjoy. I tend to enjoy Emerson's games, especially this style of game. So yeah, check it out. Check it out. See if you're interested. Sean, I'll ask you, is this one that you might pick up?
No, I don't. Well, no. I'm not going to back it. I don't know the last time I backed something from Kickstarter. I did just get a fantastic P500 fulfillment, though, Alex, from GMT, Combat Commander Pacific, with 4 of the upgrade or the expansion battle packs for Combat Commander.
I got Trial by Trolley Derailed Edition in the mail. I haven't played it, but I have it.
Well, Alex, you'll have to back this on Kickstarter then.
Yeah, maybe.
I think we have someone in the group here who is backing it, so
okay.
I think maybe I'll find. I'll double check. But
I have a feeling, given Arcane Wonders, the fine folks over there are sponsors of the show. You never know if one of those copies would make its way over here or not. I don't know. We tend to not review things that aren't available through regular distribution, right, just because we want to talk about games that people can actually go out and buy. That tends to be a pretty important thing we've looked at over the history of the show. So I don't know if we'd review it, but we'd certainly talk about it. I'd like to try it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's Foundations of Rome. Set campaign ends February 6th if you want to jump on board. And that is your look at the news. Sean, here at the Dukes of Dice, we always do things on time. You need a Valentine's Day episode? We'll get that to you about a week or two after Valentine's Day. You need a Halloween episode? I hope you like November Halloween episodes. So we tend to like running a little bit late, Sean. And good news, Game Toppers LLC has your back if you are a procrastinator like the Dukes of Dice are. Because late pledges for Game Toppers still open, Sean. Still open if you want to get on board with the ultimate gaming accessory.
Absolutely, Alex. So if you head on over to GameToppersLLC.com, you will find a link to Late Pledge Now. Do it now. Why should someone pick up a Game Topper, Alex?
Maybe you have a space like I do. A 2-bedroom, 1-bath, bottom floor of a townhouse. And look, I don't have room for an entire game room as much as I'd love to. I've taken over as much of this space as I can. But this table kind of has to stay a table. But it doesn't always have to be a table. If I want to, I can convert it into a lovely gaming table using a game topper. And when I'm done with it, there's room in the basement for everything to stow away nice and neat. And Abby doesn't have to get too much on my case for always taking up our entire living space with games.
So yeah, if you're interested in setting up something like that, getting a high-quality gaming experience, then head on over to GameToppersLLC.com.
Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. This week, the Dukes of Dice are opening our very own pub. Now, if you want to come and attend the pub, table space is limited. Some weeks we might not have beer at all. Some weeks we may just be selling food or collecting money. Some weeks we may just have a bunch of dishwashers. Some weeks we may not have any servers at all. Some weeks we may burn you alive. Does that sound like a bar you'd like to attend? Or a bar you'd like to run in a game? We'll tell you, it's the Taverns of Tiefenthal.
So Taverns of Tiefenthal is a new game by rockstar designer Wolfgang, published by North Star Games, at least here in the US. And this is, in many ways, kind of a follow-up to Quacks of Quedlinburg. There's some interesting shared design space here, which we'll talk about a little bit later with Quacks, but maybe in our discussion as well. And as Alex alluded to, you are running a tavern, and you're trying to serve guests. You're trying to produce alcohol and generate money, to basically expand your tavern To get the most points, there's a deck building element here. And what's really cool about this deck building is that as you acquire things, they go to the top of your deck. So you're going to get to use them right away on that next turn. So that's pretty interesting. Compare that to, say, Quacks of Quedlinburg, which, although it's not a deck builder, it's a bag builder. You may buy a new ingredient in there and you may never see it. You may never actually wind up pulling it. So you're at least guaranteed to get certain things. So let's talk about how this game works, though. So the game lasts, I believe it's 8 rounds, and there are little things that might happen from round to round, little bonuses you might get. But essentially, on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to take your deck of cards and you're going to flip them over until you bust. There's not really a push or luck element here like there is in Quacks. You just play until you can't play anymore. And the way that that's determined is if you fill up your tables in your tavern with guests. So let's talk about your player board and your deck. So your player board has initially 3 tables for guests. There's a spot where your brewer can bring in more beer. There's a what's the guy that just brings you a beer. You put 1 dice there of anything, gives you a beer.
So we called him. Sorry, I don't know the name of it. I thought you were talking about the card on the deck, not the space.
Well, the space too. It's just
the card on the deck. You're not talking about the guy who helps you produce an extra beer necessarily.
Yeah,
he produces
beer.
Just 1 beer, but he doesn't produce 1 extra beer per dice you put there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we called him the beer dwarf.
Okay. Well, that's the thing. Anyway, so you have a bunch of cards you're able to put out onto your board, but you got to stop putting them out once you have 3 guests in your tables. But in your deck, you start with 10 cards, and you have, I think it's 7 guests. There's an extra table. There is a dish. Oh, crap. I can't remember now. Is it a dishwasher?
You don't have a dishwasher to start.
You don't have a dishwasher? Nope. Okay.
Nope. You have to start a waitress.
A waitress.
You have a
server.
Brewmaster.
The Brewmaster.
I call him Brewmaster, the one who's the brewing monk, maybe.
Okay.
There's some name for it, but the one that lets you produce if you put a 1 or a 6 in the space, you produce a beer. This one lets you produce an extra 1. That's there. And then there's, I think, a table. You have a table in there.
Right. And so placing these cards out in and of themselves don't typically do anything for you, because then they just kind of enable you to do things. Because then what you're going to do is you're going to roll 4 dice. Potentially, you might roll extra personal dice if you have a server. And then you're going to take one of the white dice that you rolled, and you're going to draft it. You're going to keep it, and you're going to then pass them along. You'll get 3 new ones, and you're just going to keep drafting. These are just regular 6-sided dice, 1 to 6. And then you're going to start putting these dice in place in your tavern. So what are the different spots you can put? Well, the guests can give you money. Initially, your guests want a 1 or a 2, depending on which guest it is, and they'll give you $1 for a 1 or $2 for a 2. There's kind of another throwaway spot where you can just get 2 money. There is a spot where you can only place 5s. It's going to give you advancements on this particular track, which can give you certain bonuses as the game goes on. You are able to put 1s and 6s on your Brewmaster, and you're going to get a beer for every dice that you have there. And in fact, if you've played out the Brewmaster card next to it, it's actually going to double that for you. You can do any die, any type of throwaway die, on another spot that you can just do it once, and it'll just give you 1 beer. And as you're going to be playing through the game, you're going to be acquiring money, and you're going to be acquiring beer. And these are 2 different forms of currency. There are 2 rows of cards you can buy. There are guests that you can buy with beer, and there are staff that you can buy with money. And so you can acquire more of these Brewmasters. You could acquire more servers. You can buy more tables. You can buy a dishwasher, which basically will let you just add 1 to the value of a die. So lots of little interesting things you can do here. And then additionally, as you're buying new guests, these new guests will be they'll be looking for 3s and 4s and 5s, so that you put those matching dice there. They're going to give you a lot more money. And a lot of the guests will also give you some sort of special ability that happens once when you purchase them. So some interesting things that can happen there. What also makes this interesting is your board is not just a 1-piece board. It's actually like a 7-piece board because you can upgrade. You can basically flip parts of it over. So I might want to upgrade my tables from 3 tables to 4 tables. And that costs, I think, like $18 or $15. And so that's a lot of money. I can do that. And now I've got, more tables available. But I can also use discounts. So for example, if I have a table card out, I can discard that to usually get, I think, like a $5 discount on the table board upgrade. And
that's the cost of the card. The cost of the card is the amount of the discount.
Which I believe, oh yeah, that's right. And it's $5 for a table. So these will basically give you these always on abilities, which are definitely helpful. When you are upgrading these tiles, you're going to be getting nobles. Nobles are, they're 2 dice guess or 2 pip guess that will give you $2 when they, if you put dice on them. But they like to huddle together. They don't like to sit apart. All the nobles congregate together, meaning you can put multiple nobles at one table. So that's kind of interesting. And they're worth 10 points a pop, which is pretty significant. In fact, most of the cards have some sort of point value that you're going to add up at the end of the game. So you can go through these rounds. You're going to then add up the points in your deck. I have not mentioned there's a bunch of different special abilities. There's a ton going on here. There's a ton of different modules you can add. That's sort of the base, and that kind of will give you an understanding, hopefully, as we discuss through the game. But basically, whoever has the most points at the end is the winner, and that's Taverns of Tiefenthal. Alex, what were your initial expectations for this game?
Well, it's Wolfgang Warsch.
Sure.
And when it's Wolfgang Warsch, the expectations are automatically going to be higher than they would be for the same name of the game from a different designer. I have enjoyed his games, and I tend to enjoy diverse versions of his games. So Subtext, I really liked from him. I really loved, as we've discussed in depth, The Mind, and Doppelt so clever, Ganz schon clever, fantastic games. This is in, though, that category of the Quacks of Quedlinburg type of game. That was a game that my memory of how much I liked it was actually very different from how much I actually said I liked it at the time, if that makes sense, of Quacks. So I had high expectations because it's Wolfgang Warsch. I tend to like a lot of his stuff. They tend to be really great games. I was excited about the prospect of running your own tavern. That theme, for some reason, was interesting to me. So those 2 factors had me be excited and slightly cautious, just slightly cautious. So those were my expectations going in. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I was pretty excited for it initially. When I hear Wolfgang Warsch, also my ears kind of perk up because I like a ton of his games. I think he's a fantastic designer. And when I heard this was kind of a successor or had some basic game design DNA that it shared with Quacks, which I enjoy quite a bit, I was definitely excited. It was interesting when this first came out at Empire. Some of the people that played it were like, yeah, it's okay. It's all right. And so I actually put off playing it for a while, and I played it for the first time with Jake and Danielle from Draft Mechanic when they were in town around Christmas. And yeah, I liked it quite a bit from the get-go. So.
Okay, there we go. Let's talk about rulebook. Sean, did you learn this one from the rulebook?
No. So Jake basically taught the game. So that's great. It's always helpful. Did have to reference the rule book a little bit here and there, and it's a good rule book. It does a great thing that I love where it breaks things down with like color-coded sections. So it's like, okay, we're talking about this phase of the game or this aspect of the game, so it's this whole section in green. For whatever reason, I find that to be a tremendous help whenever you're learning the game from a rule book, or even when you're just referencing things in a rule book. So I think it's a solid rule book.
My first my first play of this, I was taught by my in-person arch nemesis and rival Joe from Stonemaier Games. That's how I got the initial teach, and he did a fantastic job. He set it up in such a way, Sean, where he got the game set up and he kind of explained bits about the spaces, but just had us deal things out. And it was a great example. It was a great job of kind of teaching as you play. That has nothing to do with the rulebook itself, which does a good job. The rulebook itself explains things decently well from when I had to look things up, which was not often. The expansion, or not the expansion, the modules part of the rulebook also laid things out in a fairly clear way, as best I could tell. I didn't have any issues, but I also didn't learn the game from the rulebook, which is usually when I would identify some of those kinds of issues in the first place. So
Sure.
Hard to say too much. It looked like it was fine. We'll move on. Art and components. What did you think about this whole build your own tavern experience, Sean?
So it's pretty cool in one sense. It's pretty cool in the sense that you're putting it together because it's really like a little puzzle in terms of actually setting up the game. Because like I said, your tavern comes in 7 pieces, and most of them have interlocking little puzzle dits, whatever that's called. And it's Dennis Lohausen who did the art, and it's interesting. There's times when I love Dennis Lohausen art, and there's times when I'm not crazy about it. Here, I liked it. I think he did a great job with the art. But here's what I will say: overall, the production's very solid. But in a lot of ways, given the weight of this game, the setup and the breakdown, and what it kind of held this game back for me.
Yep.
Because it's a quick game. Even when you throw in every single module, there's 5 of them, I think?
I think so, yeah.
Even when you throw all of them in, it makes it a more complex game, maybe a little bit heavier, but still not really that much. And it's just a tremendous effort to set this up and break it down. And it's not that it's not worth that effort, but it might hold me back from thinking to pull this out in the future.
It has a very high components to depth ratio.
Yes.
Really high. And that's not to say there isn't engaging depth, and we'll talk about all of that in gameplay, but yeah, you're not wrong. This is a bear of a game to set up. There's a ton of baggies that you need to separate out all the little bits. The way we ultimately packed up my copy of the game is separating out all the player pieces and then all of the individual things you might use to make a bar, to make the individual tavern, and putting those in one bag. And even then, there was still a lot of extra nonsense that was just hard to split out and separate. You have the entertainers from the bar, and you have the schnapps, and you have the signatures, and you have the signature board, and there's just a ton of stuff in here, and it does feel a little bit fiddly for what the game is. And that being said, there's some decisions made. For instance, they don't give you you earn beer and money in this game, but they're not tracked physically. They're sort of tracked on an ongoing basis. You get them that turn and you spend them that turn, other than this, the handful that you might save round to round, which you can track on your board. But you don't have like a 5 beer token and a 1 beer token and a 10 beer token. You just have whatever you produce that round plus whatever you saved from previous rounds, spend that, see what you have left over, and go from there. That kept it from being as fiddly as it could have been. I actually think that was a pretty smart decision for this game. But it still, even then, was fairly fiddly. I ran into, I should say, a production issue with my copy. Not a serious one, but there was something off with the punch boards of this game. Whereas I was punching out some of the components, it had that thing where it will tear into the rest of the punch board and not properly separate in a useful way. And it happened with a couple of those. So that was annoying. That was certainly annoying.
Maybe it's all the CrossFit you're doing. You're just too strong beefy for your own good. Yeah.
I don't think that's true. I think it just, for some reason, there were issues with that. And I think Joe may have had similar issues with his copy too. So it may not be a unique problem. May be something tied to the print run or the thickness of the punch board, or there's any number of things that could have happened. But it needs to be said, I ran into that. Separately from that, though, the iconography, fairly clear and easy to understand. You did have to do a little bit of learning with the language of the game when looking up, especially the entertainers. What does this entertainer do? What's the effect that they have? And I will say, Sean, the arrows that indicate how often you can use an ability. It'll either say 1x or ... or some number like that. I think that could have been stood to be a little bit larger, maybe, just to make that easier to digest, easier to see what was going on. But it was not a major problem over the course of the game. So some little nitpicky things, but overall, on the positive side, Sean, it's cool. You're managing a tavern. You actually have this space that you have in front of you that's yours, and you're upgrading, and you have this agency over it. On slightly negative side, it can be a bit of a table hog with all of the different stacks of cards you have, discard pile, draw deck, cards you have actively out there, the tables themselves. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on, and it can take up a good amount of space. So, yeah, art-wise, I'm with you. I think this is on the better side of the Lohausen art compared to some other games. So, I think it's overall a plus, but there are some minuses kind of tucked in there too. Gameplay, Sean.
Yeah, so it's interesting because there's no push your luck element, and that's fine. The game doesn't necessarily need to have that. Although I guess I was kind of expecting that when I heard the early comparisons to Quacks.
So let me. I think there is, to an extent, a push your luck element. Actually,
okay.
It comes into play with the entertainers in the first module, the Schnapps module. There are those. I certainly ran into a situation in some plays of this where I had dealt out something that was maybe good enough, but wasn't great. One of those things where the tables filled up really fast, but there was maybe a waitress. And I figured if I used one of my entertainers to redraw, that it would go better. And it didn't. And that felt like a push your luck and bust kind of moment to me.
Well, no, not the entertainers. It's the rogue.
The rogue.
The entertainers require schnapps, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's not those. Sorry, you're right. It's not. The thing I'm thinking of is not from the module. It's from the base game. Yeah. Anyway.
And you're right. So there's basically a mechanism where you can get these tokens and you could spend them either to get an advancement on that bonus track, or you can use it to basically flush all of the cards you just pulled out because you're not happy with it. Meaning you get rid of all your guests, but if you pulled out some nice bonus cards, like another server that gives you another die, or the brewmaster that gives you extra beer, those have to go with it too. So no, I agree. I'm just talking about in the general sense of you just play out cards until you can't any longer.
Sure. Yeah, that part of the game is there's no push your luck mechanic to that. There's no decision there. Right.
Right. And so you're absolutely right. There's no decision there. There is obviously a decision in the drafting of the dice. But in a lot of ways, that's kind of made up by what have I placed out on my board. And for me, at least, I didn't really see too many people struggle with, what do I do with these dice? I'd say 90% of the time, it was pretty obvious what you're going to do once you've drafted them. But I guess that's part of the planning of when you're actually doing the draft. And then there's some decisions to be made with, which cards am I buying? You can buy only one guest per turn. You can buy multiple staff, but only one of each type of staff. And a lot of times, especially early on, you're going to be limited by how much you're actually producing of money or beer. So while there was a lot that I enjoyed, I didn't find the choices to be particularly meaningful, and that's okay. I say that, and it almost sounds like it's a knock on the game, and it's not necessarily. This is a lighter game. It's about the same complexity as Quacks of Quedlinburg, and it's about the same number of decision points, although Quacks, it has the push your luck element. Do I keep pulling from the bag even though my potion might explode? But for some reason, I like what Quacks does better because it adds that drama. I didn't have that same type of drama with this game. There wasn't cheering on the regular with this game that there is with Quacks.
It doesn't have the same emotional highs and lows.
Yeah.
You're correct about that.
And maybe it's unfair to keep comparing it to Quacks, but I can't escape that in my mind.
I mean, because of the naming convention, it feels, though, as similar to me as Tiny Epic Western and Tiny Epic Galaxies.
Okay.
They're in the same family of games.
Sure.
Right? They have that same naming convention, that same dedication to big game, small box. But to me, the mechanics of these things are worlds apart. And I get where the comparison comes from. It's the same designer, and it has that same T of T, Q of Q kind of naming convention. The games themselves feel pretty different to me. I guess you still have the deck building, bag building kind of elements at the core of them. That does unite the two games, but I don't know. I wasn't doing a lot of comparing to that experience as I was playing this. I wasn't finding myself doing that.
Fair enough.
So modules wise, how necessary do you think some or all of the modules are to enjoyment of this game?
Oh boy. So like we said, there are 5. So there's the module that gives everyone different starting asymmetric starting resources, basically.
Right.
There's one that adds entertainers. There's like a fire breather, a juggler, or the dancer, I think.
That one is necessary to play with, I feel like.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. So it introduces schnapps, which is a token resource that are worth points at the end of the game, or you can spend them as you acquire these entertainers, and they give you certain bonuses. So that's pretty interesting. There is there's the signature board and the reputation board, which is an upgrade to your track. And as you do at the end of each turn or end of each production, you check your gold production and your beer production. Whichever is lower, you get that many reputation advancements on your personal reputation track. And as you pass certain things, you get certain bonuses, which also includes one of the bonuses. And there's other ways to get these things. There are these signatures, a signature board. And as you fill up your signature board in certain rows and columns, you get other bonuses. So it's just kind of like, okay, lots of different ways to get bonuses. What am I missing? So there's the different starting resources, the signature board, the reputation board, the entertainers, and I'm blanking on the 5th one. Can't remember the 5th.
I'm trying to think of it too.
Okay, I'll figure it out in a second.
Some of these modules, if folks can't tell from listening to this, some of them are small and some of them are big. The different starting setups one, relatively small. The Schnapps Entertainers one, humongous. So they vary in terms of what they actually add or don't add to the game.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I'd agree with you that I always want to at least play and teach new players with the gets. But I could almost see arguing that, you know what, we can just play the whole thing because it's still not that complex.
I'm fine with anything as long as it has the entertainers in. I would not play this game vanilla, typically. Okay. I think that module at the very least is necessary to have this game feel like it has enough interesting possibilities and decision points. So
yeah, I can see that.
All right, I'm looking this up. Hang on. So in the module rulebook, Sean,
yes,
it starts off naming module 2 Schnapps. Module 1, which is in the main rulebook, is stand by.
Oh.
Huh. Okay. Module 1, Sean, is the base game.
Okay.
Why did they? I don't know why that made sense to them to call it that, but that is what it is. The Module 1 is the base game. Module 2 is Schnapps, as you mentioned. Module 3 is the reputation board, which is basically the flip side of where your bartender stands. Module 4 is the different setups, and then Module 5 is the signatures, the guest books and signatures. So okay. What I think is good about this is it definitely there's a lot of different ways to play, but it's not in such a different ways to play as in, okay, we'll play this solo versus co-op versus competitive versus this flavor of game versus that flavor. We're going to play with like first class, which will the modules themselves, the two that you pick, will dramatically affect how the game is played or what you're looking for in the draft.
Sure.
Adding these modules doesn't have it necessarily feel different from one another. It's just the complexity of the game. And I think you're right that the complexity differences between having module 2 or modules 2 and 3 or modules 2, 3, and 4 and so on and so forth. They aren't huge. I think if I'm teaching a newer gamer how to play this, I'm sticking to just having module 1 and 2. Boy, it's dumb that they name them that way. It's really dumb.
Yeah, it's weird.
Anyway, just because I find the decision points with the entertainers really fascinating. When you acquire the entertainers, you have to make a decision of which side ability you want to use them on. Do you want the one that lets you upgrade your bar? Do you want the one that lets you burn patrons alive? Which we'll talk about this more in theme. But there was a lot of fun derived from some of the things in this game. Do you want to earn more money from your schnapps? Do you want your schnapps to be used to help with your beer production? I like that some of the modules force you to do a little bit of both if you want to advance on reputation. But it gives you different avenues and angles to play. I like that the game has possibility space for recruiting interesting guests and using those interesting guests, their one-time abilities or the money they produce. Or you could try and go a different way and focus more on producing a bunch of beer and getting nobles. Or you could focus on upgrading your tavern. But there's different ways you can kind of try and play this. And I like the diversity of strategies that it can offer.
Yeah, agree with that.
And I like that you can't start off a game just picking one. You have to go with what the dice give you or what your deck gives you and adjust on the fly to what happens as far as luck. Speaking of luck, Sean, did that element of luck frustrate the players that you played with? That sometimes you may just have turns that are completely wasted, that you might just draw 1, 2, 3 cards, your tables are full, you're done.
Well, I don't think so. Certainly there would be frustrating moments, but I don't think it negatively affected the gameplay. I think everyone that I played this with, and I probably played this with 7, 8 different people over the course of my plays, everyone liked this game well enough, I think. And there's ways to, mitigate that luck. There's ways to, like we said, the counter guess is what they're called. They can let you flush your cards basically. And even if you don't necessarily have the best card set up at the end of the card round, maybe there's some dice manipulation that you're able to do. So yeah, I don't think it held the game back at all. But also that's part of the planning. Okay, maybe I need to invest in some tables, so I can play more things out.
Preferred player count. Did you have a preferred player count with this one?
No, I don't think so. I played this at 2, 3, and 4, and I think it played really well at all the player counts. And that's rare for me to say that like I don't have a preferred player count. Usually I'm like, oh, I prefer it at 3. I think it played well at all the player counts.
The one thing I'll say is that with 2, I found that draft a lot less interesting.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the passing back and forth was kind of a little convoluted. I don't know. It was fine. I mean, it was fine. It played really well. Abby really enjoyed this game. But 2 was not my favorite player count. I think 3 or 4 is fine. And I would agree with you that it probably plays fairly well or well enough at all of those counts. But my preferred would be 3 or 4.
Sure.
Yeah. Trying to think of other questions to talk about in this one. So you mentioned that you didn't find the decision points interesting enough. What was it about it though that because it sounds like you still enjoyed this one. What was it about the game experience that you still enjoyed despite what would typically be a fatal flaw for most games we talk about on this show?
Well, and that's the thing is it's okay to not. You don't have to. A game doesn't have to have a bunch of decision points to be a good game necessarily, right? And I think that and you're right. There's a big difference in terms of mechanics between this and Quacks. This is very much a dice placement game, but you're setting up the dice receptacles, for lack of a better term, through a similar mechanism that Quacks has. But like I said, Quacks has about the same amount of decision making, maybe less, maybe more because of the push your luck element. The drama of it all, because of that push your luck element, kind of elevates the gameplay. I still enjoy this game, and it's, if anything's holding it back, it's not because the decisions aren't super impactful. There's other things that might hold it back a little bit, and it's mostly that setup and breakdown for what you're getting from it.
I mean, it was something that was also not as bad to the same extent, but was also not a selling point necessarily with Quacks.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah, maybe.
I think both of them have a beefier setup than the game would typically warrant in terms of complexity. Not to a point where I don't want to necessarily play the games where it's super rough, and Taverns is certainly worse on that front than Quacks by a good amount. But I don't know. They both seem a little bit overwrought in that way to me.
Yeah, I don't hold it against Quacks. So
okay, fair.
Yeah. So let's talk about theme, Alex. There's some weird stuff. I think it's fairly thematic in a lot of ways, but there's also some weird stuff.
It is both very thematic and completely disconnected from its theme, all at the same time.
Sure.
You have some turns in this game where if you think about what's occurring, dang it, a bunch of old men just came and sat in my bar, and now I can't make any money for the entire round. Those kind of rounds can happen. The fact that you have abilities in this game where you are literally burning people alive, like the icon shows effectively that, like, this patron is dead, this person is gone. It is wild. It's wild if you think about this game. This concept of some weeks in the tavern we don't make any beer. Some weeks we make a lot of beer. Some weeks we're just selling, I guess, food for money. I don't know.
Yeah, why not?
It's the world's strangest tavern. Hey, we need a permanent table, so let's burn this one. We need to burn this table so we can have a permanent one in here. I don't know. But at the same time, like it feels like you're managing your own bar. That element does shine through. So it's not athematic. It feels like, okay, I'm making a beer, and this person helps me make more beer, and the monk track, that makes me better at beer, and there's a waitress, of course, that gives me access to more actions, but. Certainly, I found myself telling the story of my bar round to round. This was a bad week. This was a bad week at the bar.
I figured you would have done that. Yeah. And I didn't necessarily do that myself, but I'm pretty sure that Alex is having fun telling the story of Alex's pub.
What would you like to do with these schnapps? Would you like to sell them for money, or would you like to use them to burn this person alive? Your call.
I almost always burn people alive.
Yeah,
deck thinning is like my favorite thing.
Yeah,
in the world.
deck thinning is the way to go. Yeah.
And burning people alive is also fun
and memorable. And I don't know. I'd have a hard time thinking. I have to think this through more. But I don't know why a theme this disconnected doesn't bug me and proves charming in a game like this, whereas in a game like Food Chain Magnate, it drives me absolutely insane. I don't know. Maybe it's an uncanny valley of theme. This idea that if you have a theme that's too close to the real thing, if it's slightly off, that feels almost like a slight. Whereas if you have something that's completely wacky and off the wall, then it's more forgivable. I don't know.
And for the record, I once again disagree with the premise of what you're saying. There's nothing wrong with that thematic connection in Food Chain Magnate.
I know you're on the opposite side of this. You love Food Chain Magnate, and I absolutely hate it. But part of why I hate it is because I feel like it's disconnected.
If I see an advertisement, Alex, for a delicious burger from Burger King,
not this debate again.
I'm not going to go to Burger King. I'm going to be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go to the store. And I'm going to
why would they pay for an ad for just a delicious burger? No one does that except for the Burger Council, which is the joke I make every time with that game. The National Burger Council says, eat more burgers. McDonald's doesn't pay for those kinds of ads. McDonald's has McDonald's ads. That's how it works.
Yeah, but just because you see an ad, if I see an ad for Domino's, it's like, oh yeah, pizza sounds good.
But Domino's gets some sort of a brand advantage at some point in some form or fashion here. Give me $1 edge. Give me a $2 edge. Give me something. Give me something in that game.
Because that's what Alex wants. Complex simulations.
Listen to me. You're the person who hates your game the most about how to change it. Yep. Fair enough. Anyway, The point being, this game certainly has theme.
Oh.
Whether it's connected or makes any sense is very debatable, but I tended to think it was actually a really one of my favorite things of the game was the theme, despite its craziness and disconnectedness. So, yep. Guild thoughts. There were actually a few on this one on the Guild, Sean. Earl Osborne, and I don't know if it's pronounced Earl. It's spelled E-O-R-L, and I'm so sorry. If it is actually Earl, I'm not sorry at all. I did great. And if it is different, then I'm sorry.
Aoral? Wouldn't it be Aoral?
I don't know. Anyway.
Aoral?
I love the deck building in Taverns with the knowledge that the cards in your discard pile cannot come back to help or hurt you yet, unless you can, as my son prefers to do, just buy so many tables that you draw your entire hand each of the last few rounds and just fill up on nobles. I love that some strategies are more or less possible depending on the number of modules added in. I thin my customers brutally when only the schnapps and entertainers were included, so that I could basically upgrade all my tavern for free in the last round, having almost 3 of every upgrade out and enough beer to buy 4 nobles. 18 plus 9 equals 27 beer, if that's even permitted. But could not get enough schnapps once the reputation track appeared to do it again in the next game. So, yeah, it's an instance of the modules can certainly affect your overall strategy in this game by a good amount. You're incentivized, maybe without the reputation track, for instance, to just focus on one thing or the other in a certain round and save little bits of money as you go. And having the reputation track encourages you, hey, maybe do both and move up on that track and get nobles that way. So, anyway.
By the way, Aoral was the founder of Rohan, Alex.
Cool.
Do you know what that is?
No.
Rohan. The Horse Lords from Lord of the Rings?
Oh, that sounded Lord of the Rings-ish. Okay. Cool.
So, Sylvain Lacroix says, I have to admit, the sales pitch on this one was perfect. Wolfgang Warsch with an accessible deck builder with dice drafting mechanics and a great theme. Everyone was also very positive on this one and gave it a lot of praise. But then I played. First of all, the modules are mandatory. One of the problems is that it packs a lot of things for a non-gamer and doesn't offer much to a gamer. I found the game to be lackluster. My main problem is that there's no interesting decisions to make. The game is pretty much on autopilot. There's no way to mitigate the dice. Dishwasher offer a +1, but no -1. Also, there are 3 to 4 turns per game on 8 rounds that are pretty much wasted due to poor card draw. Now, the concept is great, but in application, the dice you draft are placed to the obvious areas, not enough decision-making. I could rant about it for a while, but I will understand that this is a family game. But even with this in mind, I would play a dozen other gateway games first. I will unleash the 2. By the way, we rate things here on a 6-point scale. 2 is not good. 2 is not good, Alex.
2 isn't good on a 10-point scale. It's slightly less bad on a 6-point scale, but still not good.
And to be honest, there's a lot I agree with there with Sylvain Lacroix. My final score will not reflect a 2, just a little taste of what's to come. But a lot of his analysis, I think, is apt.
He's not necessarily wrong, but none of that stuff bugged me to the degree it seemed to bug him.
Sure.
And I also didn't find that many turns per game would end up being wasted. I could see that happening. But not quite that.
Sounds about right. Sounds about right.
Okay. All right.
Maybe two to 3, maybe at least, which is still a lot.
Still a good amount. Yeah, good portion of the game. But there's still other meaningful things you can do in the meantime and setting up long terms. I don't know. It didn't bug me. It did not bug me. But it does happen. And when it happens, I actually, because of the theme, was able to tolerate it more than I might have if the theme was different.
I could see that.
So, Don Gilstrap, my favorite guild member ever, says, I like it, but haven't had the urge to bring it out. It's a nice mix of mechanics, but a little odd theme-wise. I hope to get it to the table again soon, but for now, it's a 4. P.S. I'm clumsy, so I hate the passing of the dice step. There's a lot of stuff on the table, and I was frequently dropping dice and trying to remember what they were as I passed the coaster across the table. I'm sure there's a more reliable way to pass, but that was super frustrating on the first play. I definitely ran into this. That's definitely happened to me, too.
They're the light wooden dice, and they're very easy to knock over.
Yeah. And the coasters are nice. They're slightly, they're not small for the size of the dice necessarily, but they're small relative to hands, I guess.
Yeah, so the game comes with these little coasters, which is very thematic, and you put your dice on the coasters and you pass the coasters with the dice. So.
Yep. Well, cool. That's Guild Thoughts. Sean, you want to go first on this bad boy?
Oh, okay. Well, it's not a 2.
Yeah, okay. Well, we said that already.
It's not a 6.
Yeah,
it's not
okay.
a 5.
Guess that.
So it's a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
And I feel like it would be a 4. By the way, let's parse this out here. A 4 is a good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. A 3 is game is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation. So I feel like I would probably have given this a 4. Were the setup and breakdown not so rough relative to what it is?
Yep.
I mean, I haven't talked about it, I just set up Empire of the Sun, this grand GMT strategic war in the Pacific, World War II, and that takes like an hour to set up, right? But it's also like 15 hours of gameplay, which I'm sure you would love, Alex. Yeah, I think it's going to be a 3. I think the lack of meaningful decisions, at least consistently, like there's some interesting decisions from one turn to the next, but not often. And I didn't feel the drama. So I think it's a 3. Game is okay, not exciting, while playing the right situation. I think it could have been a 4. It's being held back from being a 4. I would definitely say if any of this sounded interesting, give it a shot. Try it out. It's a good game, and I mean, it's definitely a gateway family weight game. But yeah, I don't know. I was probably higher on it initially than when I had to go back and set it up and break it down time and time again. So
fair. Yeah, I'll agree with you, Sean. The setup and breakdown of this is an absolute nightmare, and I think it'll hold the game back for me from getting as many plays of it as I could. That being said, Abby really enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed this game. I enjoyed the bar management aspects. I enjoyed what am I going to focus on this round? I enjoyed that puzzle. I enjoyed looking ahead in the draft and trying to plan out my moves. And am I going to bank up my schnapps for bigger plays? Am I going to hold them up to maybe upgrade my bar? Am I going to focus on the monk track this time around? What's my path to getting more nobles? Am I going to build up brewmasters and focus on beers? The thematics of this come together with the gameplay in a way that's satisfying for me. Is it so satisfying that I'm head over heels to play this again and again and again? No, not really. But it's definitely more in the category of good than just okay. And so for me, it's definitely a clear 4. Clear 4. It'll stay in the collection. I anticipate I'll play it again a few more times in the year to come. But the setup and breakdown will keep that from being the go-to, and will keep me from playing it as much as I could have otherwise.
Sure.
So yeah, that's where we stand. Taverns of Tiefenthal. Sean gives this one a 3, and I give this one a 4. Next up, the Duke's Double Take, going back to episode 193, Cooking the Books, where we talked about the Quacks of Quedlinburg. Now, Sean, in thinking back to this review, I was like, oh yeah, I probably gave this one a 4. Nope. Nope, I didn't. I gave this one a 5 at the time. I said, rare to imagine a time I turn it down, nice balance of strategy and fun, and one that I was excited to introduce to Abby. And in fact, I did introduce this to Abby, and she did enjoy it. So to answer the question early, I have played this one since. Sean, you gave this one a 5. You said the pressure luck aspect is great, easy to teach, really fun, perfect playtime. Sean, I know you've played this one since.
I've played this at least 8 times since the review, at least.
Yep.
I bought the expansion. That adds a 5th player, adds the herb witches, some other things too. No, this is a fantastic game, Alex. Fantastic.
Is this your favorite Warsh?
Yes.
Oh, even over the Mind.
I mean, first off, the Mind isn't a game, Alex, so it's not even in the realm.
Oh my goodness.
Just kidding. No, yeah, I mean, I like the Mind, but this is, I mean, you know, if there's a style of game that's more Alex than Sean or more Sean than Alex, I think this is definitely more Sean and the Mind is more Alex.
Yes.
So here's, okay. Just quick overview of the game. you are building a bag of ingredients. You're pulling them out one at a time, putting them on the spiral board. You want to go further along on this board because the farther you go, the more points you're going to get each round and the more purchase you have to get new ingredients. Different ingredients have special abilities. Some of them are 1, some of them are 2s, 4s. They can move farther along on the spiral. But you have these cherry blossoms in your bag that if they add up to more than 7, you bust, and you then get either points or purchase value. You can't get both. That's just the short of it. All right, Alex, this is a 6.
Whoa!
This has gone up from a 5 to a 6, an all-time favorite. That is a contender for the top 10. I won my very first 2 games of this, and I have not won a game of it since.
Okay.
And that has zero effect on it. I love this game. This game is great in so many situations. It's great we've had a bunch of new people come to the shop on Duke's Dice Game Night. We've got 4 or 5 players. We can very easily play this. The drama of this game, the cheering, okay, I'm about to bust. I'm going to stand up and it's got to be the right one. All of the interesting little combos. I mean, the only decisions here are, do I push my luck? And which things do I buy? There's not a ton of meaningful decisions in this game either, but the drama of the game really elevates this. This is probably one of my go-to gateway games. And Raquel and I have played this 2 players several times. Because it's quick enough. I don't think the setup is as odious as you might think for whatever reason. I love this game, Alex. It is fantastic.
Wow. So it's so rare for a double take.
Yeah.
So rare.
Yeah.
I think it's telling for me that when I thought back onto what my score was for this at the time, that I thought it was a 4. And I think that tells me what my score is now more than it did then. I think this game is really solid when I play it, and you certainly get those highs and lows and the stand-up moments and the busting and some interesting decisions with what you buy and what strategy to approach it from. But I'm not as in love with it. I'm just not as in love with it as you are. Abby enjoys it. It's staying in the collection. It's not going anywhere. I even have the upgraded chips. I didn't buy them, but I have them somehow. So
did you break into the BGG booth?
No, I didn't steal them. We just happened to, we received something when I was at Gray Fox, and they ended up in my hands as opposed to, anyway, it's fine. I didn't steal them. Anyway.
As your lawyer, Alex, don't say anything else.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a 4. My excitement level for this game and the frequency I've played it at is nowhere near the same level and love that you have for this.
Wow.
So it's a 4 for me. It's a 4. It is really good. It's a really good game. It's not among my favorite warshes. I will play Gons or Doppelt So Clever above this any day, and certainly the Mind. The Mind is top 10 of all time. I've played the Mind so many times since. So yeah, it's a 4. But I mean, that's fine. That's actually fares better than most games we talk about on a double take.
So take that, all you people who say I don't like light games. I like light games.
You like some light games.
Yeah, well,
you like this. Yeah. You like this light game.
Yeah, I like really good light games. That's all.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
Let's see what the guild had to say, Alex.
A lot of things. A lot of things. Phil Hendrickson says, my wife and I are latecomers at Quacks, only learning it last fall. It has quickly become a favorite for when we want a light, fun game that makes us say yes or grrr. Yeah, it does have that effect. Ryan Moore says, Quacks is a fantastic game. I've yet to play just the base game and have always played with the expansion. There's something to be said for the sheer silly fun that's found in this game. I love that going bust doesn't give you a nothing turn. You can still do something, and at times that's all you need, so why not go for it, am I right? I am certainly more inclined. I have bust way too often in this game. Yeah. Way too often, all the time. Anyway.
I can see that.
Yep.
Don Gilstrap says, I adore it. My family adores it. The Herb Witches expansion is arriving at my door tomorrow, and I can't wait. I would say, Alex, that if nothing else, the Herb Witches expansion is great for adding a fifth player because there's no reason that adding a fifth player should slow down this game at all in terms of game length.
Yep. All right, the last of the positive comments from Ryan Rao. I've played Quacks quite a bit and really enjoyed the variability you can create with each play. This has become a game night favorite at all player counts. Where I've seen this game shine is in my classroom. I've obtained multiple copies of Quacks to teach my senior mathematics class about probability theory. It's a fun activity for the students to see the lessons we've learned in a setting other than a textbook. The theme draws in students, and gameplay is simple enough almost anyone can learn. Could this game be a modern-day classic? Time will tell. A Ducal 5 for us.
Matthew S. has something different here.
Yeah, very different.
I have played the Quacks of Quedlinburg, and it is a terrible game. I've played twice. The first time I literally played a perfect game. I did not bust once. Everyone else busted multiple times. Unfortunately, not only did the rat tails rubber band the game, every single card that came out was a catch-up mechanism. I lost a game in which I made no mistakes and did not get unlucky either. You might say that was a fluke setup. Fine. I played again on a different occasion and it was still terrible. There are two big reasons for this. One, the game is extremely calculable if you have a good memory and are good at math. This removes a lot of the tension. Two, press your luck is a mechanic meant for spectacle. In better games like Port Royal and Deep Sea Adventure, you are watching and laughing at what other people are doing on their turns. In this piece of garbage, everyone is just mentally calculating their own easy puzzle, staring at their own board. It's almost impressive how Warsh managed to suck everything worthwhile about the genre out of this game. It's a Ducal 2, and that's generous.
Whoa.
Okay, Matthew S., unleash the one. I think he means it's a one. Reading that, for him, it's a one.
That was a one if I've ever heard one. Now, can I say this, Sean?
Wait. In this piece of garbage. Go on.
Yeah, I would say if you're calling a game a piece of garbage, that would be let's read the definition of a one. It's so rare that this comes up. Poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. Based on reading that Matthew, that is a one for you, and I don't think it's close, actually.
That might be a zero. That could be a zero.
I don't think it's a zero.
Well, piece of garbage.
I think a zero is if a game is actually like outright offensive. Like literally offensive. In addition to being terrible. It's also offensive.
You and I gave Machikoro a one. We both gave Machikoro a one. I wouldn't call it a piece of garbage, though. I hate it. I hate it with a passion. I wouldn't call it a piece of garbage. I see the appeal of it, and it's a very popular game.
All right. Now, I do want to go back to something in now, Matthew. I was not in your game of this when you played the perfect game, but I will say the fact that you did not bust does not necessarily suggest to me that you played a perfect game. That busting to me is not the end-all be-all measure of how well or poorly you're doing in this game. If that were the goal or that were the thing at stake or play, then people would just draw one chip and not bust and win. I don't think not busting is a good measure of that. The measure is what decisions did you make with the chips that you picked up? Did you push long enough to get the most possible benefit to get points? I don't know. There's other measures to me, but not busting to me is not actually a fair measure. That being said, you may hate the game for perfectly valid reasons. So
Sure.
I would agree that compared to, say, Deep Sea Adventure, there is less of that interactive, I'm invested in what you're doing and really curious how badly you might screw this up here. So,
and I guess I would say, too, I'm constantly looking around at what other people are doing because that's part of the decision, too. I'm like, oh, wow, this person is already on, the 17 spot and I'm back at 13 and I'm about to bust. Maybe I need to keep going because I need to keep pace with them. I don't know. I'm constantly watching what other people are doing and I don't know, but each his own.
Okay. Earl Osborne or Eorl Osborne says, I can see why people love Quacks, but even though I know it's a necessary evil, the whole rat tails catch-up mechanism never feels good, and the ability for my best tokens to just hide in the corners of the bag is something I can do without.
So what I'll say is, if you can notch, make little marks on them that you can read with your fingertips, the game's much easier. So just throwing that out there. Just cheat. Everything's fine when you cheat. And then finally, Tiger Mom. Hi, Tiger Mom. I haven't seen you in the guild in a while.
She jumped in. She said hi. She said she was so excited to catch up and hear about all the dieting and engagements and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. So she says, I am not a big fan of push your luck games. I am horrible at pushing my luck, always seeming to choose the wrong time to push and the wrong time to be conservative. However, this is an enjoyable game, and I'm glad that my friends own it so that we can play from time to time. I would give it a 3 because I do not need to have this in my collection. Fair enough.
All right. Well, that'll do it for the Duke's double take. Sean moves this from a 5 to a 6, and I move this from a 5 down to a 4. Before we wrap things up, Sean, the best of the rest. And this was a pretty good week for names, a fun week for names, and a week where I think people were intent on embarrassing me if they possibly could. And I will oblige, Sean, because that's just the kind of co-host I am.
Sure. So first up, Steve O'Rourke, the name father, suggested washing machine. A little twist there with the Midwest pronunciation of washing machine.
Yeah.
And of course, there's some engine building here. So I think that's part of the machine element to the name, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. So nice job, name father. D. Shannon, who actually named the episode, had another one, which was wash. Huh. Good God, yo. What is he good for? A whole bunch of games. I don't think that was great, but they never are.
It was a thing you just did. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
I'm excited. I'm more excited for the next one.
Okay. All right. Well, not the next one.
I mean, the next name's fine, too. I'm talking about the next one that I'm going to read.
Okay. Baker Mitchell suggested the Appraisers of Albuquerque, or the Appraisers of Albuquerque and the Arch City. Of course, continuing the alliteration of, Taverns of Tiefenthal and Quacks of Quedlinburg. And Alex, we are the Appraisers of Albuquerque and the Arch City.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Don Gilstrap, my favorite guild member of all time, with the suggestion, schnapps, everybody.
Okay, that was better. You redeemed yourself.
That was better because I've heard that song way more recently. Are you going to sing this one, Sean? Or do we need to flip this one too?
Oh, the next one. So BJ from Board Game Gumbo suggested, dun, 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 where everybody plays your game. Bum, bum, bum. How'd I do? Is that good?
That was fine. Yeah. It's been a while since you've let loose that beautiful singing voice.
Beautiful. Just angelic.
Yeah. And then Matt Walker with actually a pretty nice little joke set up here. A duck walks into a bar, referencing Quack, Duck, and the bar, Taverns of Tiefenthal. There you go.
Ha.
You didn't get that?
That completely went over my head the first time.
Really? Oh yeah, I thought you'd be higher on that name, but you weren't, and now I understand why.
By the way, I beat Matt Walker by $2,000 in 1862 last night. So take that, Matt.
Congrats.
Oh, it was great.
Good job. Nice work.
All right. Well, that's going to do it, Alex. Let's wrap this hoedown up. Hoedown? What? I don't know. This has been episode 218, Wolfgang Pack. Thanks again to D. Shannon for that awesome episode title. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on January 30th, 2020. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Game Toppers, LLC. You can learn more about Arcane Wonders' fine games at ArcaneWonders.com and find out all you need to know about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on.